Now, when we look at the year ahead, of course, we look to how professionals are going to be looking to both secure jobs and also build their careers amid mass layoffs, restructures, and a decline in business investment. There's no question that job seekers have been left out in the cold. But what does the year ahead hold? Well, Kayla Dengay, LinkedIn news editor and creator of Get Hired Australia, caught up with careers coach Jane Jackson a little bit earlier this week. She started by asking Jane what her big idea was for 2021, and it started a little bit higher up the chain. Take a look.
One of the things that have come out so clearly this year in the corporate sector because of COVID and also with all the changes politically and organizational change is the need for authentic, consistent and clear communication. That's what I think is so important for leaders in particular to focus on, because without clear communication, employees will become frustrated. And without clear communication, especially when there's organizational change, there'll be a little bit of mistrust, there'll be anxiety, productivity is going to suffer. And if you're able to communicate regularly and clearly with your employees, then they will have an understanding of what's really happening. And authenticity is very important as well, because, you know, the word fake news has come up quite a lot in the past 4 years. And sometimes we read something, it might be on the internet, the company intranet, or in the news, and we don't know what to believe because, you know, there's quite a fair amount of bias as well. So leaders who are able to communicate authentically will definitely come ahead in 2021.
Now, Jane, that's a really wonderful big idea. And when it comes to job seekers trying to take this information on board and do something valuable with it, how can they make sure that they're presenting themselves as their most authentic selves in a job interview?
First of all, job seekers need to understand who they are, where they're coming from. What are your values? What is your true career anchor? What is it that pulls you in a certain direction? And be able to verbalize that in interviews. Because without that solid foundation, you're not going to walk into a job interview with clarity and confidence. So take time to assess who you really are, what is it that drives you, what motivates you, what demotivates you in a work environment, what are the transferable skills that you actually bring to the table, and be able to talk about those key skills that you have that actually add value within an organization. Armed with that and a big dose of confidence too, that's when you're going to be able to interview well. Many employers will be asking you, how did you handle yourself during COVID? What did you do when you were stood down? If you lost your job, how did you stay productive within, you know, the home environment? Or what did you learn as a result of COVID? So be ready to talk about that, and don't be afraid to talk about the challenges you experienced, because so many of us, and even I felt it as well, was that with all of the lockdowns, it starts to create a little bit of anxiety because you think, how long is this going to go on for? And if you're able to overcome this very well, be willing to talk about it, because we're all human. And remember, even when you go in for an interview, it's just a conversation. So have that conversation to find out if you're the right person for them, if they're the right employer for you, and if there's a good match, then you'll be successful.
Jane, you mentioned knowing what your career anchor is. For people who might be thinking about switching careers, what advice do you have for figuring out what you want to do in this world?
To understand your career anchor, it's an assessment that was created by Dr. Edgar Sheen. He found during this 12-year study that the anchor that drew them before graduation never changed, and it stayed constant for 12 years over this 12-year study. And so there are a number of anchors that may pull you. For example, there's general managerial anchor, a technical functional anchor, an autonomy anchor, a entrepreneurial creativity anchor, dedication to a cause or service, lifestyle. There are a number of anchors that may be pulling you in a certain direction. Whatever your anchor may be, if you identify if it's a general managerial anchor, make sure that every career decision you make moving forward will enable you to fulfill that anchor. Because if you're a technical functional anchor and you go more into a general managerial type role, you're going to be moving away from that functional competence that is what really drives you. So just be aware, because sometimes we veer away from our anchors because someone taps us on the shoulder and says, oh, here's some more money, or here's a promotion, or here's a role in this location, would you like it? And very often we think, oh, that sounds good. And then you say yes without really thinking, is this the direction that I want my career to progress into? So understanding your career anchor, it pulls you, as an anchor does, it holds you steady so that you do the right thing for yourself in your career moving forward.
Career coach Jane Jackson there, sharing her insights for the year ahead as it pertains to job seekers and those looking to build and grow their careers, with LinkedIn news editor and creator of Get Hired Australia, Kayla Dengate. That is all we've got time for this afternoon on Big Ideas Live. Thank you very much for your company, and to those of you that have shared your thoughts in the comments. You can go and check out the full 21 big ideas for 2021. The link has been shared in the comments. We just want to take the opportunity to thank our guests this afternoon, LinkedIn influencers Kate Carnell and John Paul Drake. We also, of course, just heard from Top Voice Jane Jackson and LinkedIn Senior Editor at Large George Anders and Small Business Editor Jordan Dahl. It was a packed show, much like this year has been pretty packed. I've been your host, Natalie MacDonald. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you and goodbye.